Good morning and happy Mother's Day to the mothers, I guess the three here today. We want to start with a couple of announcements. First off, because it is Mother's Day, we have no afternoon meal or service here today. I encourage you to head home and spend with family. And so no afternoon meal or service today. Next Sunday we will be gone. And so we'll post a link for a sermon for next Sunday. And as well, depending on what the cell service is like out in the mountains, we may try to stream the wedding on Saturday, but that's yet to be determined. If you were wanting to watch it and you were looking for it, it'd probably be on my wife's Facebook page, I would assume. And so you can try around I guess that would be 1 o'clock time frame here on Saturday. But that's still to be determined. I know Matt, when he got his own phone or his own plan, he switched to AT&T because Verizon, which we have, does not work very well in that area. So it's likely that we will not have signal, but we'll see how that works out. And then the very next week, the 28th, we have an afternoon picnic again, depending on the weather. It will either be at the park on the road or in our basement, and we'll have some picnic type item foods and go from there. That watermelon there in that picture looks really good right now, and so looking forward to a church picnic on that 28th. Beyond that, obviously Father's Day then comes up in June, and we'll do the same as we are today. And then our next actual scheduled event, besides the regular scheduled business meetings, will be in November when we have the Maranatha group 6 months from now, here, I forget what they're called. Anyway, the Maranatha group, I have it on the website, so if you want to find out what their name is, you have to go there, I can't recall.
Impact Team?
Yeah, Impact Team, yes, Impact Team. Other than that, I don't have any other announcements. As far as prayer requests, we didn't have too many updated this week either. Barbara Nell has surgery that Wednesday, so we will certainly want to be in prayer for her this week. And then I saw that Deanna Kuntz had an update last night. I don't remember if there was anything specific, was it? Yeah.
She's running a temperature. Her blood workup didn't come back very good, very low. They said that could cause the temperature, but she might have an infection. She has what's called left ventricle, and that's why they couldn't do the stem cell stuff in her, up here in her, and they had to do it in her leg, but the one in the leg got infected. So they told her originally, we don't want to do it because of your opposite of what it's supposed to be. The blood goes in the wrong side of the heart or something. And because it's so close to the heart,
That's weird.
it's more apt for infection and blood clot.
Yes.
And so they don't know if it's from that.
Yes. So basically, she's running a fever, and they don't know why.
Right, they put her on antibiotics just in case.
Yes. I don't think we had any other updates, from what I recall. Certainly pray for us as we travel. Wednesday early, super early morning, and then back next Sunday. Parents traveling. possibly Bob, but to be determined as well. I feel like there was another one I was going to mention.
Michelle's not feeling well.
Yes, that's right. Anybody else? If not, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you again for who you are. We thank you for the moms that are represented literally in person here this morning, but as well those that are not. I just pray that you would certainly do a work in our hearts here this morning as we look to you, as we honor moms, as we spend time together before you. And I pray that you be with these requests that we just mentioned, specifically Barbara, as she has his surgery on Wednesday. I pray that you keep her healthy between now and then. So allow her to get the rest that she needs, even with the unknown ahead, that she be able to rest in you. And I just pray that you be with the surgeons and all that's involved on Wednesday, just that you would be honored and your very hand would be felt there in that process. And for Deanna as well, as she's going through just this fever and trying to determine the cause, certainly several possible reasons for it, but I pray that you would just lead and direct them accordingly, that they'd be able to figure out what it is that's causing this fever and to be able to find the remedy as well. And then as well, certainly for Michelle, who's not feeling well today, I pray that you just give her the energy, the health that she needs, and just that she'd be able to get the rest today that is necessary. And for several who are traveling here this week for the wedding, I pray that you would certainly give safety in the travels, and as well, I just pray that you'd be honored in the wedding ceremony on Saturday as well, and we give you the glory for that. For the other requests, certainly still in our hearts and our lives, on our prayer list, I just pray that you continue to do what only you can do, and that you be honored through that as well. And as we continue on with our service here in a moment, the giving of our tithes and our offerings, I just ask that you lead and direct there, and certainly multiply it as we seek to increase the ministry here in Toulon to those around us. We thank you for that opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand as we sing our hymn here this morning, hymn number 49, Blessed Be the Name, and again, let's stand as we sing. All praise to Him who reigns above, majesty supreme, who gave His Son for man to die, that He might man redeem. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the Very good, so you may be seated, and this time we have special music. Very good, thank you. Yesterday, we had a large list of items that we had to get done, a lot to do with the wedding, things that we have been working on a list of things that we can do from here in preparation for next Saturday. And so we had that long list, and then as well, Jamie graduated from nursing school. And we knew that part of that was involving a Catholic Mass, which we're really all that interested in being part of that. And so we made arrangements with Bob that we were going to meet up with them after the service for like the family meal, but we were going to work on our list of things to get done. That took a lot more of the day than we anticipated before and after lunch. But nonetheless, as we would be out and about, I would log in to the service there at the Civic Center and see where they're going. And so I first logged in, and sure enough, there they were in the middle of their mass, so that was a quick, we'll come back and check on this later. And we made a run to a store and came back out, and I checked again, and they were actually in the graduation ceremony, and they were in the L's, so we just sat in the parking lot and waited, because we knew that N for Newtshorn had to be very soon. And so we were able to watch Jamie get pinned by her mom, and the little bio that they give for that as well. Thank you, Josiah. And then once they were done and they were off camera, we're like, well, turn that off, and we drove to our next stop that of our list of things we had to get accomplished. Well, later on, just to see where they were to check on the progress, I had previously searched out for last year's graduation ceremony and saw that it was 1 hour and 53 minutes long. And then Bob was telling everybody that they had been told to expect the ceremony to be 3 hours. And so I checked in about the hour and 45-minute mark just to see where they were in the ceremony, wondering how much time we had yet to finish work on our list, or do we need to start heading over to the restaurant. And they were giving out awards, and one of the awards that just cracked me up was they gave this whole bio of what this award was about, and it was about participation and giving and community service and all of this, but it was all about activity and being involved and engaged, and there was one nursing student that would win that, and so they called the name out, and then they said the recipient was not able to be there. I laughed out loud while we were sitting in our vehicle. I thought, how is it that the person who wins the participation award doesn't participate in the graduation ceremony? How does that even, like, when they heard that she wasn't going to be there, did they think about maybe giving it to somebody else? Now, I don't know. She may have just given her kidney to somebody in the hospital the night before and it was in recovery. I don't know the details, obviously. But it did crack me up. And then it reminded of Mother's Day. The reality of motherhood, the reality of being a mom is definitely a hands-on participation. And there's a lot of things that for all of us, our time can be distracted or refocused elsewhere. And for mothers and fathers, but for mothers, since it's Mother's Day, we as a church certainly want to encourage a participation award. Not something that is, well, here you're a mom, so let's recognize you, but here's a mom who participated. Here's a mom who engaged and had a priority. Now, it certainly doesn't mean that every mom has to be a stay-at-home mom and homeschool and never leave their child's side. Certainly that's not what I'm saying. But there's a lot of hands-on to motherhood, and you don't want to, it's not the ideal to get the participation award and never have participated. And so we want to look at just a single verse, although we'll be going elsewhere as well, but a single verse in Proverbs 31 in regards to the heart of motherhood. For a quick history, it's been a few years since I went over this, and I always find this intriguing. The history of Mother's Day started in the 1600s in England. They began observing Mothering Sunday, which was the fourth Sunday of Lent. It honored moms, and it was on that day that servants were allowed to return home to their parents to honor their moms on that single day. Later, as Christianity spread, they began connecting the honoring mom with the connection of honoring the church, and so then it began to be a bring mom to church and honor them both. Mother's Day did not reach the U.S. until the late 1800s. In 1872, Julia Ward Howe, who actually wrote the words to the Battle Hymn of the Republic, recognized a day dedicated to peace and honoring Mother Country. I guess that would be fitting for someone who wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic, would be about patriotism. In 1907, then, Anna Jarvis took it to the next step, connecting with England, to not just connect Mother Country, but our actual mothers. And Anna's mother, Mrs. Jarvis, had attempted to start a Mother's Friendship Day to bring healing after the Civil War, but it never took off. So her daughter, Anna, wanted to get this started, really get this moving. And she wanted to encourage children to honor their moms while they still had moms to honor, which was not her case. In 1908, Anna was able to convince her church in Grafton, West Virginia, to hold a special memorial to all mothers, specifically to hers, and she brought carnations to all those that attended the service because that was her mom's favorite flower when she was alive. In 1913, just a few years later, 5 years later, the House of Representatives made a resolution to require all government workers to then wear a carnation on this newly founded Mother's Day. The very next year, 1914, President Woodrow Wilson made Mother's Day a national holiday to honor mothers. Ironically, and I know you've heard this before because I've said this before, but in 1923, so 9 years after Woodrow Wilson made Mother's Day a national holiday, 9 years later in 1923, Anna Jarvis is arrested for trying to stop a Mother's Day celebration from selling flowers. She becomes so discouraged that the very day that she fought so hard to get established here in this nation to honor moms had become such a holiday of, what do you call that, commercialism, of spending money, of buying flowers, of buying cards, And her desire, especially as a lady who had lost her mom, her desire was that moms would be honored, not just that money would be spent. And so 9 years after Woodrow Wilson made it a holiday, Anna Jarvis is arrested for trying to stop a Mother's Day celebration. Interesting that as she passed away at the age of 84, Anna Jarvis never married and never became a mom herself. Mother's Day. From a child's view of a mother, a teacher gave her class of second graders a lesson on the magnet and what it does. The very next day in a written test, she included this question. My full name has 6 letters. The first one is M. I pick up things. What am I? Obviously, it was a magnet was the answer. But when the test papers were turned in, the teacher was astonished to find that almost 50% of the students answered the question with the word mother. My full name has 6 letters. The first one is M, and I pick up things. Yeah, I guess either works. Certainly in our household, either works in that regard. Some funny quotations. Children are a great comfort in your old age, and they help you reach it faster too. Insanity is hereditary. You get it from your children. The one thing children wear out faster than shoes is parents. Parents often talk about the younger generation as if they didn't have anything to do with it. Thought that was funny. Cleaning up with children around is like shoveling during a blizzard. My wife likes that one. Sometime we're going to have to get a plaque or something that says that on it. If evolution really works, why is it that mothers still only have 2 hands? That's a valid scientific question. And a man's got to do what a man's got to do, and a woman must do what he can't. That's a rough one for us guys. This morning we're going to look at Proverbs chapter 31, verse 25. I'll read the verse. It says, strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. This isn't just talking about moms, this is talking about a virtuous woman, as we often describe here in this last chapter of Proverbs. But yet a lot of these verses of a virtual woman also include the responsibilities as a mom. So we're going to look at this verse 25 as the heart of a mom, but it really is a heart of a lady. And truthfully, we'll probably discover that it applies to us guys as well. But what is the heart of a mom? Motherhood has certainly been in transition in our nation. Truly everything is in transition, I fear, in our nation, but the role, the importance, the integrity of motherhood, I think, is slipping away in our nation. The very essence of mothers have changed. There was a day when moms trained their daughters on how to be mothers, knowing that not every daughter was going to get married, and not every married daughter was going to have children, but there were traits that were learned from an early age. Part of it was how to cook, how to sew, how to be a nurse and treat ailments, etc. But even the more important part, I believe, was the heart. How to have a heart. But here's how I think, and I didn't find this anywhere, this is just my thinking. So you can completely disagree with me, you can say, well, Pastor, you got that all wrong. But let me give you my thoughts on how this has transitioned over the years. It seems that following the tremendous time of the time of lack of the 20s, the economy turned around and money and success became a greater importance than family. And certainly they had suffered much, and now we have much. And the focus began to switch from the home to outside of the home, even back in the 30s and beyond. It did not tempt all to be mothers away from the heart of the mother of motherhood, but it certainly got many. Then the women's lib movement jumped into full swing a few decades later, and suddenly the task of a woman changed, and the heart soon followed thereafter. Third, the sexual revolution took root in the 60s and 70s, and what was once reserved for marriage was promoted in the public place. Abortion was then legalized to help facilitate the transition away from marriage. Fourth, words like equality followed, and the lines between the genders began to fade. Dolls were no longer reserved for just the girls. And it seems that when dolls cease to be just a little girl thing, it seems to cease as a girl thing at all. Fifth, as God was boldly removed from schools and public places, the new God on the scene became self, became me. And I think that when that took place, we completely lost the heart of a mom. because the heart of the mom is not a me. I don't think a good mom can have a heart of me. Otherwise, it would be to the neglect of her children. And I've known many good mothers, my own included, and the one that lives with me now, whose heart obviously was evidencing a heart of their children and nurturing them and training them, not a heart of what I have and what I want and what I deserve and my rights. Mothers really do not seem to know how to mother today because the heart of motherhood is no longer being taught. Last week I had a conversation with a coworker, and he pointed out we are now living in a generation that those who have never heard no as children are now living as adults with their own children. And what a sad reality that becomes. Fighting reality is what we will become of those born of today. How is our next generation going to be in regards to mothers? How are we going to look at motherhood as ladies? How is the church going to support motherhood? The church must hold to the heart of moms. We need to continue teaching it, and living it, supporting it, promoting it. And so we're on the same page. I'm not talking about mothers teaching their daughters how to cook and sew and all that. But we've got to get back to mothers being able to teach their daughters the importance and the honor of being a mom. And I'm fearing that is being lost. This single verse in Proverbs chapter 31, I think, is a great way to start. It's a great jumping point, and that's what we're just going to look at here this morning, a jumping point of getting back to the heart of a mom. The heart of mom. It says in Proverbs 31, verse 25, it says, "Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come." The first point, obviously, here's what a heart of a mom is like. It begins with strength. The Hebrew word here involves an application of more than just of strength. I might say that it's not about muscles tensed and biceps rippling, a female version of the Incredible Hulk, so to speak. But when it says strength is part of her clothing, it has the idea of a heart of strength, a heart of courage, a heart that is willing to continuing on, even when it's difficult to do so. And I would dare say, if I guess to say this as a side note, I believe it's going to become harder and harder for moms to be moms. And I think we need to be reminded of this simple single verse, that it begins with the strength of a mom. And I also add this as a side note, or a sad side note, of the weird reality that we live in today. There was a day not that long ago that, I'll use an example of an Olympian. You have a female Olympian who you would see them doing their athletic event, and it would be easy to say, that is a very strong lady. She's strong. Almost to the point where I'd be like, I wouldn't want to meet her in an alley because she'd probably whoop me. Well, the sad reality of today, and it has only diminished womanhood, is that today when you see a strong woman, you have to ask the question, is that really a woman? And it has only hurt one person, one gender, the ladies. It's only hurt the females of today. Strength is not in muscle strength. Strength is not in the size of our biceps and how much we can bench press in the gym. This strength is the strength of a heart. It's the strength of courage. And it mentions that strength and honor are her clothing. This is an interesting aspect as far as clothing goes. Romans 13:14 says, "But put ye on the Lord Jesus Christ." Put on the Lord Jesus Christ, as in the same idea of putting on Christ as clothing. Now, obviously, we're not putting on Christ as clothing, but it has that same example as Proverbs 31:25. Strength is to be her clothing. 1 Timothy 2:9 and 10, and speaking of women, it says, "In like manner also that women adorn themselves with modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works." Again, good works is now equated in the New Testament as the clothing of a woman. Ephesians 6:14, to all of us says, "Stand therefore having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness." Again, the aspects of the heart are something that we are putting on as clothing, although obviously not items of clothing. Job 29:14 says, and I put on, Job is saying, he's attesting to his own righteousness, really is what he's doing. He says, I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My judgment was as a robe and a diadem. The point that Job is making, I think it applies directly to Proverbs 31:25, is this. The items that we wear can define us, albeit temporarily. For instance, we were kind of laughing yesterday, going back to the graduation. A couple of the girls had to change after the graduation before we ate the food. And as we heard that, Bob sent a text saying, hey, we're done here. We're going to be heading over. It's going to be a while yet because several of them are changing. I thought, what are they wearing that they can't eat? That they have to change before they eat? Well, what am I missing here? Okay, well, we'll go with that. But who we are and as far as what we wear obviously can change. I have a coworker who, if she runs home to do an errand, she changes out of her work clothes and into jeans. And it literally could be to go pick up a daughter and bring them to a soccer game and then come right back to work. And I just scratch my head and I think, are your work clothes that uncomfortable that you can't drive your vehicle to another town to drop off your daughter before? And there's a lot of times I think to myself, we live in strange times. Why is this necessary? Well, when we put on clothing, it can be a temporary thing. Right now I'm wearing a shirt and tie coat. I can guarantee you in another hour, I am not going to be wearing a shirt and tie and coat. In fact, a lot of times, and you all, when we have afternoon services, you can all attest to this, usually as soon as I'm done closing in prayer, I walk right up to that front pew and I take off my coat. The position of clothing that I'm wearing up here quickly changes before we go downstairs to eat. And I know that contradicts everything I just said, but I do still have the same clothing, just take off the coat. We can see that concept of that transition, certainly with Elijah and Elisha. It was the changing of the garment that was kind of the passing on of the cloak, the passing on of a position. An emperor would put on his emperor's robe, but when that emperor was no longer emperor, somebody else put on that robe. And so there's always a transition in regards to actual clothing. But what Job is pointing out in Job 29:14, I put on righteousness. He's equating righteousness as an item of clothing, but what he's doing is making it so that it's not something that is changed as clothing is. His righteousness was not something that he put on and put off. His righteousness was an aspect of the heart that was put on and left on. And when we come here to Proverbs 31:25, and it says strength is her clothing, I believe it's in the same concept of Job, where this is not as in clothing that we change, but it's in a heart that stays the same. It's a heart of strength. It is a heart that continues on in courage. This exact word here in the Hebrew of the word strength, the first word of verse 25, it has the idea or the definition of a strength of mind, of courage, of resolution. I think that greatly defines motherhood. I think that greatly defines the responsibility of a church in supporting and promoting what true motherhood is. A strength of mind, of courage, of resolution. I know this is not a secret to most of you, but I enjoy the Kendrick movies, the Kendrick brothers, and Courageous is one of them. It's got the police officer theme. At the end of the movie Courageous, one of the officers is in his church, which is literally actually his church that he actually attends there in Georgia. And he's standing behind the pulpit having just given a presentation about what it means to be a father. And one of the last lines of the movie is, "Where are you, men? Where are the men that are going to stand up and be courageous?" And it's always, I think that's just a perfect ending. I know they redid that movie, and I think they changed some of the ends. I haven't watched it because I like the way it is. Where are you, men? Where are the men of courage? But ultimately, the Word of God is not calling just men to be courageous. Strength is a woman's clothing. That strength is a word that has that concept of courage. Courage is not as it's been defined today again, to go to the weirdities of society today, I don't understand how we call it courageous when a woman goes public in wanting to be a man, or a man becomes public in wanting to be a woman. That's not courage. There'd be a lot of things we could call that, but that's not courageous. We've got to get back to what courage really is, and not allow society to redefine and reuse a word that really has a great biblical importance. When Joshua called the children of Israel to be courageous, he was talking about something far greater than a man having the courage to declare that he wants to be a woman. This is a position of great, to use the word, of great strength, of great fortitude. She is clothed with strength. Moms must live and exemplify courage to their children. And as I've already alluded to already, we live in a day where this is even more important, because we are redefining motherhood, and we are redefining courage. And moms, we've got to get back to teaching our children. We've got to get back to teaching our children by example what courage is. When the going gets tough, that we are still going to keep moving. We're going to still following our God. We're going to still be faithful to Him. We're going to still be loving Him and having the courage to do so, even when the pull of society is getting greater and greater to go elsewhere. Having that kind of courage is the heart of a mom. Secondly, though, the second thing she's clothed in, and it's not just courage or strength, but it is honor. She is clothed in honor, as the verse continues on. A second aspect of the heart of a mom is honor. Now, we often view honor as something that is gained, something that is received, right? Today we honor moms, and so if you're a mom, you are receiving, I hope, you are receiving honor. We have some gifts a little later to show forth that honor that we want to do for moms. I sent a text to my mother-in-law this morning, and it was one of those that you write, I typed it out, and then as I reread it before I hit send, I thought, I don't want this to sound the way it could sound. But I wrote something along the lines of Happy Mother's Day. Thanks for raising a daughter who would be a great pastor's wife and mother. And I reread it and I thought, I don't want that to sound like she's a wife of a great pastor. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. Thanks for raising a wife who's a wife of a great pastor. So that I had to put in a second quote, second text and say, no, the great is an adjective to a wife and mother, not to pastor. We have that responsibility as a church to encourage homes in the importance of moms, the importance of motherhood, and the importance of living out the example of not just courage, but honor. It is something that is not a recipient. It's not something that we are gaining, but something that we are giving. It's something that is we are exuding. A woman is to basically have the essence of, the heart of honor. Honor, like strength, is something that she is clothed in honor, not as a recipient, but as a presentation of her heart. Do you remember in school, there was often that girl, or maybe girls, multiple, that demanded by their very presence the honor that she believed was due. Many times they had their nose stuck in the air. And, she looked at others as if she was not worthy to be your friend. And honor then was something that she demanded, and guys were the same way, but we're focused on the ladies here today. Guys can be the same way. But in the illustration of the ladies, it was almost like she demanded honor and respect because she had promoted herself to this kind of what do you call that, position, even though perhaps she probably shouldn't have been. But the Proverbs 31:25 is not something that as honor is to be demanded of. It's not something that we stick our noses up in the air as moms and demand honor. I am a mother, you're going to honor me. But it is the essence of a heart. It's not about having the resume, the position, the prestige, the role, Women, just like men, can extol in their fields and excel in their fields and accomplish much. But that's not the type of an honor that is the heart of a mom. This type of honor coincides with courageous strength. It is a heart that is not dependent on social status. It's that kind of honor. It is a heart that is not clinging to a resume and a list of accomplishments to define who she is. It's that kind of honor. It is a heart that seeks to live out a good name. It is that kind of honor. It is the moral character that goes hand in hand with the strength of true courage. Proverbs 31:28, a few verses later, says, "Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her." The point of verse 28 is not something that she is demanding, but it's because of her character she is now gaining. It is a character, it is a heart, it is a moral nature of honor. I think a great New Testament example, and I don't use this example, especially after a Catholic service yesterday. I don't use this example in the same way, but I think the Mary, the Mother of Christ, is a great example who had the character of honor. You know, in her day, to be found with child before marriage would have been far different than it would be today. Today we still throw baby showers and moms get all excited and start the planning process and buying the cribs, and it's a big joy. It's a child. Back then, to be found with child before you were married was a disgrace. In fact, if it could be determined the cause of it, according to Levitical law, it could be actually the cause of death. So when Mary, could just step into Mary's shoes for a moment, because it is such a different culture than what we live in. Mary is being told, here's what's going to happen to you. You're going to be found with a child, even though you don't know a man. And certainly this is not said, but the undertone in Mary's mind certainly wouldn't have gone to the reality of, what will my neighbor say? What will my family say? What will those people that I do business with say and think of me being found with child when I am not married yet to my husband? Can you imagine what would have gone through Mary's mind and the possibility of what she had to be thinking that others would be thinking as she was being told these very words that she was going to become with child and give birth to the Lord? What an honor. But what, on the other hand, what a tragedy for a single girl to be going through. And the culture of that day was not necessarily that Mary would have been, a mature, 20 or 30-year-old. She could have been a mature 13 or 14-year-old, as the culture of that day was. And yet she's being told, you're going to be found with a child. But what is Mary's response? It is a response of honor. Behold, the handmaiden of the Lord. In other words, whatever your will is, I'm good with that. That is a heart of honor. That is it's not about me. It's not, I'm going to honor my God with my heart and my life, and I'm going to exude that kind of honor. Not one that's demanding it in return, but one that is exuding it from the heart, that is illustrating it from the heart, that is willing to say to a God, this is probably not going to be to my best advantage. I know that people are going to be talking. I know that there's going to be snickers. I know that there's going to be wrong conclusions. I'm judged for this. But I am your servant. And I will do as you've called me to do. I think that is an amazing illustration of what is being said in this verse, Proverbs 31:25. Strength, the courage, and the honor are her clothing. Honor, a presentation of the heart. Sometimes I believe that honor is viewed before the eyes of man instead of the eyes of God. You want to know what true honor is? It's change that focus. True honor is not this kind of honor. Proverbs 31:25. That kind of honor is not something that is viewed in the eyes of man, it is viewed in the eyes of God. So to have such a essence of the heart that is, I want to be in the presence of God, one that is honorable, and I want that to be my heart. That's what this is. That's what that clothing is. But we continue on in verse 25. Strength is her clothing, or we say courage. Honor is her clothing. And again, this is not something that is demanded of, but something that is her essence. But then I'm going to call it laughter, because I think that's just a great way of defining it. It says at the end of verse 25, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She shall rejoice. The meaning is simple in the Hebrew. It means to laugh. A second word that is very important to our understanding in this verse, in this last phrase, it uses the word in time. And that word literally means to be hot, to be difficult, to have those difficult times. In other words, what is being said here and she shall rejoice in time, if I just leave off those last three words, or two words, she shall rejoice in time means she is going to laugh even when life is hard, even when life is difficult. Now, that's not that laughter of that nervous laugh that says, I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, this is going to be good. It is a laughter that is rooted in trust. It's a trust that is so purposed on our God that regardless of what is being faced in the home, which is what Proverbs 31 is focused on, what is being faced in society, what is being faced in our own even health, that a woman of character, a woman with a heart of mom, is going to be able to laugh when things are hot, to use an exact literal translation. But what happens when we are hot? I know I've already shared about my views of North Carolina, and so I won't reiterate all of the details that I've already shared. But what happens when we are hot? There's many words that sometimes go together with the word hot when it describes humanity in times of heat, of hot and pressure and all of that. Words such as hot and miserable, or hot and grouchy, hot and tired, or even more specific, weary. You're hot and weary. Because in the actual literal temperature of the season, when we are in those times of heat, it just saps the energy out of you. It just saps the, can we say joy, although that's really the wrong word we should be using. It saps the happiness out of us. And it's much more difficult to laugh. Unless we are becoming delirious and dehydrated, then when we begin to laugh in those situations, maybe it's time to call maybe the medics to come and help us out. But it's in those times where it's very difficult to laugh, is it not? I am not in a laughing time when I am just hot. Think of a baby. Think of a child. When a child is cold, they snuggle in, and many times they'll just become very quiet, almost frightfully so, quiet. But when a baby is hot, what happens? Oh, they are just crabby and grouchy, and nothing you do will calm them down until you cool them off. And sometimes it may be just means stripping them down to their diapers and letting them stretch and air out a little, and maybe splash a little water on them, and figuring out some way of cooling them down. But even from our infant times, mankind has not enjoyed being hot. Now, are those that I guess if you would compare the two, there are probably many who would say, I guess I'd rather be hot than cold. And so that's kind of a personal choice on which way we go in that regard. My personal choice is I'd rather not be hot or cold. I go with the Revelation thing. Although I guess it's not the Revelation. I'd rather be lukewarm, and I guess that's completely contrary to what Revelation points out. But I'd rather just be, somewhere between 68 and 72, that's perfect. Hotter than that, that's hot. Colder than that, that's cold. But the truth is when life gets difficult, it is very hard to laugh. Why? Or what? I should ask it this way. What does it indicate when it's hard for us to laugh when life gets difficult? It is indicating a lacking in our heart. And the heart of a mom, Proverbs 31:25 says, strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice. And again, that phrase in the Hebrew, in time, those two words as they're translated in English, is in the Hebrew a word that means when things are difficult, when things are hot, when things are challenging, we are able to still, a heart of a mom is still able to laugh. Now, if you're a mom and your child is having the most miserable day and they come home to share with you their most miserable day, probably not the best time to laugh. You probably need to keep things in light there. When your husband has had a horrible day at work and he comes home and he just unloads it was a miserable, probably not the best time just to laugh. I'm not guaranteeing how things will turn out in those cases. But we ought to have such a trust in God as moms, but certainly for all of us, we ought to have such a trust in our God. A faith in our God, a confidence in our God, that we truly are able, from our hearts, to have aspects of joy, regardless of what we are facing, correct? That's what James says, that we are to count it all joy when we fall into diverse temptation, when we fall in those holes that we didn't realize were traps, and suddenly we're going around our business, things seem to be going well, and all of a sudden we are now in the bottom of a trap, looking up at no possible way to get ourselves out of this. The book of James says we need to figure out how to count those times as joyful times. And it doesn't make sense that we could count those days as joyful days, except that we know, as James 1 continues on, that as we go through those trials, it worketh forth patience. And that patience, that endurance then, as we continue to learn what endurance is, bringeth forth a more perfect man, a more completed man. And so it was during those times that we are able to grow. It's in those times that we're able to see God in bigger ways, as Paul would cry out and say, hey, I had this thorn in the flesh, and for 3 seasons, I cried out that God would remove it from me, but he didn't. And Paul's not writing to the church of Corinth and complaining to say, oh, you guys have no idea how horrible and miserable my life is. Paul is writing to them to say, ultimately, I'm glad my God did not answer my prayers, because I learned what grace was. And I learned that even though this is not enjoyable for me, even though whatever that thorn in the flesh was for Paul, even though the circumstance that I longed for it to be gone in my life didn't disappear, I learned about my God, and now I glory in this. I glory in this trap I've fallen into. I glory in the reality of a difficult time, because I know that God is going to do something great and marvelous in it. Therefore, he says, the heart of a woman, Proverbs 31:25, a heart of a mom is one who's able to rejoice in those times. James points it out for all of us. Guys, we need to figure out how to do this as well. We need to have that same kind of heart, that we're able to rejoice in those times. A heart of laughter. But those last two words of verse 25 make it even more peculiar. It's one thing, one great big giant step to be able to laugh in those difficult times. But what about when we add the words yet to come? What's our actual response? Okay, so when we're going through those difficult times, the hot times, it's easy for us to be grouchy, to be complaining, to be whiny, to be self-focused, to be, I don't like this, I want it to go away. That's easy for us when we're going through those difficult times. When we add in these last two words, to come, that has an idea of a future tense, of something that we haven't faced yet. Where does our heart go in those circumstances? I'm not casting judgment on anybody on our prayer list, but I can tell you from a human standpoint, when you are facing today with the knowledge of something big happening, like Barbara having surgery on Wednesday, how easy is it? Let me say, what's the human nature response of living on Sunday when you know you're having big surgery on Wednesday? Where do our minds go? Where do our hearts go? We hit the two words, what if? And what happens when we begin to focus on the what if? When we begin to become anxious, we become nervous, we become, I don't know what's going to happen. And we begin to move our trust from our God, We lose the essence of the joy that we have, and we begin to put our focus on the circumstance, and we no longer find joy in that, do we? We no longer find peace in that, do we? What we find is anxiety, we find frustration, we find I can't bear this any longer, we find I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But here's the heart of a mom. She's one that has courage. It is not something that she claims, takes on, and takes off as I will with this jacket today. But it is a courage that is a part of her heart. The strength of a mom's heart. But we also know that a mom then has honor, and it's not the honor that is something that is given and received by her, but it's an honor, it's living an honorable life from her heart. But we know as well from this verse, thirdly, the heart of a mom is one who is able to laugh, who is able to trust, who is able to follow after God even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, even when there is the unknown what-ifs. A heart of a mom, according to the description of this mom in Proverbs 31, the heart of a mom is able to rejoice. She is able to laugh. You've ever faced an unknown circumstance, and I know that we've all done this. We have all faced it with anxiety, right? Every one of us have faced the unknown before us with great anxiety. How enjoyable was that? Not at all. Have you ever faced the unknown, like a big unknown, and able to just trust God? Well, what's the outcome of that? It's difficult to do, but it's almost like I'm kind of curious how God's going to do this. And we just sit back and trust God. Not that we're doing nothing, not that we're just sitting on the sidelines eating popcorn just waiting for God to do something. That usually requires us to be active in the process as well. But there's a whole different attitude, a whole different heart as we're able to participate in what God is doing with excitement for what God is going to do. And that's literally what is being said here about the heart of a mom. A heart of a virtuous mom is one who's able to rejoice, even in the unknown. To sit back and say, this is going to be exciting. You know, you can watch a movie on a television, and the plot has been put out, and you know, everybody knows in most cases the hero is going to somehow solve it. You watch a Hallmark movie, you know that you can watch the first half of a Hallmark movie, and it's a guarantee. Whoever is, usually a man and a woman, whichever man and woman in this first half of the movie is having the most conflict together, you know by the end of that movie, and I've said this before, at the end of that Hallmark movie, those two causing the problems, they're going to be kissing, and there's going to be snow, and someone's going to be wearing a corny sweater. That's how Hallmark does their movie plots. But you can look at the first half of the movie, and many times people go, they'll be the ones kissing at the end. And it probably takes the whole storyline out of it because, the very first scene, here's a boss and an employee that are just fighting and bickering, and they're going to be the ones kissing at the end. We already know the end of the story, and probably he's going to be wearing some weird sweater, and it's going to be raining or snowing outside, and that's just how it's going to be. Well, sometimes there are movies where you're watching and you look and you're like, I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know what's going to happen. And somehow the hero is going to win. And you almost kind of with excitement, how is this going to do? How is this going to work out? How are you going to get out of the situation? Do we have such a trust in our God that God as the victor is always going to win? And we are able to face our hot, difficult times of life, even in the unknown future, with such anticipation of, I know my God is going to win, and I can't wait to see how it works, how it happens. That is the heart of a mom being described. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. So these are essence of the heart. We thought it appropriate here this morning to hand out candles. But they're battery-operated candles, so there's no threat. I guess as a fireman, I have to say there's no threat of fire. Unless somehow the battery shorts out and something goes awry in that way, I guess I can't say there's definitely no risk of fire. But these are battery-operated candles, and they will flicker. And there's a timer on the bottom that you can set, so like we have some at home already that we've had for quite some time now. And I think they turn on around 5 o'clock in the evening, they go off like at 10:30 at night. And we can sit, anytime, especially in homework days, we'd sit in the living room and read our books, and the candles would be flickering. Neither of us have to light it, and neither of us have to blow it out. It just flickers away. And it looks legit, like a real candle, but at a certain time, it blows itself out. And it waits for the next night to come back on again and start flickering again. But it seems to me that as we consider the aspect of light, that's really what verse 25 is. A mom's heart is one that is showing by the light of what courage is, by what honor truly is, an honorable life, what true trust is. It is like a light to her children to be able to say when they're facing their trials, I saw Mom go through this, and I saw how she did it. I know I can do the same. So for a heart of a mom, regardless of where we are in that stage, a mom or a grandma or a great-great-grandma, or maybe one of the three ladies in here that potentially have a future husband in the future and potentially be a mom at some point. To have a heart of a mom is to have a heart that exudes a godly relationship with your God, to be the light in the home. And so we have a candle. I wanted to tell you, there's a switch on the bottom, right? It's on the bottom, and there's something to do with the timer. Hopefully you can figure that out. Ask my wife if you have questions. But don't leave before you get a candle. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you again for the moms here represented in this room. I pray that you continue to use them, and certainly I can say that I believe that all of the moms in this room have exuded the character of godliness, but I pray that you continue to direct them in those steps. And I pray that you will continue to use them in their homes, with their children, with their grandchildren. They would be able to be a continued light of what it truly means to have courage, what it truly means to have an honorable, moral, honoring to you kind of a life, and what it truly means to trust you, that we're even able to laugh in the unknown, to have such great confidence in who you are, that the pressures of life don't get us down. And I pray that you would encourage the moms, as motherhood is being redefined and so severely changed here in our society today. I pray that the moms today would continue on being your kind of mom. And we thank you for them. And I pray you use us as we go our separate ways now. In Jesus' name, amen. When I stand in closing, we'll sing just one verse of 546. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, and let's say it as we sing. Oh, soul, are you? No light in the darkness you see. There's light for all and the Savior, and life more abundant and free. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Very good. Josiah, after I pray, you want to man the candles, hand them out? All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you again for the privilege that we have to honor moms today. I pray that you would continue to guide and direct the moms, and that they'd be able to continue having an impact on children and grandchildren and neighbors, and even as Titus points out, even the older moms would teach the younger moms how to truly love their husbands and how to truly love their children. And I pray that we live that out and promote that as a church to your honor and to your glory. And I pray that you'd use us as you see fit here this week, in the week to come. Regardless of what comes our way, I pray that we be able to laugh, that we be able to trust in you with great confidence, to your glory, to your honor. In Jesus' name, amen.